Okay, the next item is an informational presentation from the Palo Alto Pickleball Club. And we have member Ron Gentile, who's going to be giving a presentation.
Members of the commission, thank you. Very grateful for the opportunity to come here and talk about pickleball. The motto of the Pickleball Club is arrive as a stranger, leave as a friend. And I think it's actually very apt, because what's happening at Mitchell Park and with pickleball is something that I believe is creating some magic there that really intersects well with issues in the community. And so I wanted to talk about that. Next, please. So quick background, starting point. For me, I moved to California, worked at Adobe, got involved in the startup world, et cetera. And I'm currently CEO of a mental health company called MoodFit. And a long sports background. I played sports my whole life, recently gotten into doing all this crazy Ironman things and stuff like that. And my view on pickleball was always, why would I do that? That sounds like something that people do when they're retired and maybe their mobility is not as good or whatever it is. And I just had this perception that this was something that was just this sort of niche thing off here that was happening. And finally, somebody I used to work with kept badgering me and said, hey, come out and try this thing. And so I said, sure. And I met him at Mitchell Park, and I remember walking up there and opening the gates, and there were these 13 courts of people laughing and playing and running around and all this stuff happening. And the first thing I said was, how long has this been here? I live in Palo Alto. I drive by there on Middlefield all the time. I had no idea this was going on. I've been to Mitchell Park Library 30 times. I had no idea this was going on. A few days later, I went back with a friend of mine in the neighborhood who had wanted to play. And I was like, I know nothing, but come on, we'll go take these rickety pieces of plywood and go down there and do something. And we went, I think, early on a Sunday morning, found a court, jumped on there, started knocking the ball back and forth, no clue what we're doing. And two guys come up and said, hey, do you guys want to play a game? And I said, sure, but I just wanted to let you know we have no idea what we're doing. And they were like, no problem, we'll actually show you. And for the next hour, they took us under their wing, and they showed us the scoring, the shots, the everything. And the guy said, by the way, the ball you brought here is an indoor ball. Went over to his bag, opened this thing of balls, and gave me a couple of these outdoor balls and said, here you go, keep those. And they showed us everything. And on the drive home with my friend, I was like, was that weird to you? And he's like, yes, I have never seen that my whole life. And I was like, I never have either. Is this a cult, or what is going on here? So, it was so incredibly welcoming, so incredibly friendly. And when I looked around, I was like, my gosh, there's people down here and they're really athletic and competing and doing amazing things. And there's people down here who are laughing and socializing, having all this fun. I was like, there is something odd happening here. So I started going out more regularly. And being a startup person and coming from a product background, we are always looking for pain points or glimmers of happiness and joy, because that's what we pursue. And as I was out there and I was starting to play, and people are just talking to you, and you're observing all this, and the people are laughing, and all this stuff is happening, and you realize that you can walk out there by yourself. You don't have to make an appointment with somebody you know. You just walk out there with this $10 piece of plywood. In fact, frankly, you could walk out there in your street clothes, stand in the middle of it and say, I've got no idea what's going on here, but I would like to do something. And in 2 minutes, someone will have taken you, gotten you on a court, given you a paddle, given you the balls, and start showing you all the things. And that's weird that happens. That doesn't happen many times in life, where people are so incredibly enthusiastic about something that it's not just the main people in the pickleball club. It's people broadly who are out there involved in this. And so I started bringing other people, and these are people who don't play sports. I frankly have known them from book clubs and other things, and they've really never been that enthusiastic about anything. And all of a sudden, I'm like, why are you sending me text messages at midnight with, I saw this pickleball video, and what does this mean? So all of a sudden, they're into this, and they're badgering me to go out and to play more. And at a certain point, our company is in mental health, and so I started to really drill down and say, what is going on out here that's pulling people back more and more and giving them this happiness and joy? And you start piecing it together, and you start to realize, okay, they're outside, they're moving, they're socializing, they're connecting with people. The barrier to socialize with someone is zero. You can walk out there and immediately you are part of that community, and people will pull you right into it. So if you fast forward to today and my little pickleball journey, and I'm sharing it mostly because it seems that everybody I talk to has a very similar experience of people just being so enthusiastic, they pull them into this thing. So it's become very, very clear to me that the reason that pickleball is so popular and that there is so much magic happening at Mitchell Park is because of the fundamental happiness and joy people get, including the social connections and other things. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. And a byproduct of that happiness, my premise is actually helping to address a lot of key social infrastructure issues. And we could utilize this more broadly. Next slide, please. So about pickleball, racket sport that brings together tennis, badminton, ping pong, created in the 60s in Seattle, which probably is also when Starbucks was created or something. Third most popular participation sport in the US today, which is pretty amazing for a sport that I thought was just some random corner case thing, to find out it's third behind just jogging and biking. That this sport came out of nowhere, boom, past golf, past tennis, past all these things. There's 10,000 places to play in the US. There's more than 44,000 courts, which exploded my mind, given I didn't even know we had courts here in Palo Alto. It was designed to be played by people of all ages. The average age has come down, come down, come down. It's at 38. It's continuing to drop. 29% of the players are 18 to 34. It's fastest growing among people 24 and under, including kids. Women now are growing faster than men in pickleball. There are pro leagues. There are tournaments nationwide. It's broadcast by ESPN. It's broadcast on Amazon Prime. It is a thing, and a big thing. Next slide, please. And it's innovating. You know, we all know the objections have been about noise and things like that. And the USA Pickleball Club, which is the governing body for pickleball nationwide, they have now a special category for quiet products. There are new paddles that have come out. One is called the Owl, and John McEnroe is part of this, and he's got some little quote here about he likes to be noisy, but this paddle is not noisy. This stuff is all happening. They're figuring it out. There's new balls that are quieter. All these things that historically were objections are being ironed out. When you get ESPN, you get Amazon, you get LeBron James, Tom Brady, you get all these parties involved in this, they're going to figure out the details. This thing is a real thing. Next slide, please. So cycling back, why is it so incredibly popular? Low barrier entry. Skills. By design, it was designed so multi-generations could play together. Little kids, grandparents, and everybody in between. So it has all these different shots in it, some of which take hardly any mobility, but you practice and you get really crafty at it. I'll be honest, the first time I went out there, I was schooled by someone twice my age, just ran me ragged all over the court. So everybody can play. Skills, ability, and equipment. Like I said, it's like a $10 piece of plywood from Amazon to get started. And in fact, they give these out. I randomly, like 9 months ago, some place just sent me out of the blue pickleball paddle because they were just sending things out to people. And I believe you fast forward a couple of years, insurance companies are going to be sending out pickleball paddles because of all the physical and mental health benefits. It's inherently super social. Mostly it's always played as doubles. Games are short. So it's not, I'm going to go out and I'm going to sit here for 90 minutes while somebody else does their thing, and then I'm going to get my turn. Games are like 15 minutes. And it's super easy, as I mentioned, to show up as an individual. And there's just a little protocol. You set your paddle down, and then you're in the next game, and off you go. Numerous physical and mental health benefits. Next slide, please. So the Palo Alto Pickleball Club, rapidly growing local club, more than 1,100 members. It grows 25% year over year, and they don't market anything. They do no marketing. So it's all word of mouth. They are the caretakers and ambassadors of Mitchell Ball pickleball courts. They even fund facility improvements there. And Mitchell Park, it turns out, is considered the epicenter of Bay Area pickleball. And it's not a surprise because you've got these great ambassador organization there who are running clinics and helping people get started and being welcoming and all this kinds of stuff. They have 15 courts, it's open 6 to 10, blah, blah, blah. There's players of all levels of background. When you go out there, you see everybody playing. You see kids, you see grandparents, you see there are pros that sometimes are there. There's some of everything there. One thing that is certainly true is a lot of times it is more than 2x at capacity. The demand is so high that there are queues of people waiting and waiting and waiting to get on. And my contention would be the pickleball club, what they have done is taken something that is good and actually make it great and make it magical. And it's today doing things for the community in a really integral, fundamental way. Next slide, please. So ways to give back. Numerous events. In the last 12 months, they had more than 400 events, more than 3,000 participants. They run these getting started sessions. I was telling somebody about this yesterday. You just show up to this thing and they have the paddles, the balls, the coaches, they get you on the court, they show you every little shot and they get you started. They show you, here's where the restrooms are, here's where this happens, etc. And they go from getting started through, they have a whole set of clinics to help people get acclimated and get going with pickleball and to meet new people and make these social connections as part of it. They run a lot of programs for youths. They have social activities out there. There's a big picnic area, and there are always different kinds of activities, and they have an online community. So there are lots of opportunities they facilitate for people to connect, and they have tournaments and participate and get involved in all kinds of tournaments, including the Bay Area Senior Games. They host events for community organizations. We actually did one for Rotary a week or two ago. They'll actually say, hey, bring out the members of your organization. We'll bring the ambassadors, the coaches, the equipment, the courts, and we will do everything to get you acclimated, get you going, and basically have an amazing time here. They show them the basics, and they genuinely just make them feel welcome in that community. Also, what the club does is they work with surrounding communities to share the recipe, to share what they have created, and over time, what they have learned what works. East Palo Alto, Mountain View, Milpitas, Los Altos, Portola Valley, et cetera, et cetera. And people from the pickleball club here who have learned the recipe have taken it to Vietnam, to Tonga, to Japan, and other places. Ultimately, what it does is facilitates this incredibly welcoming community for literally everyone. There are not a lot of places in Palo Alto where you could just go out and say, hey, I know nothing about what's going on here. Would someone just get me going without probably getting harassed or arrested or who knows what? This is a place where they're like, oh my gosh, come right over here. We'll get you going. Next slide, please. So on the surface, it looks like people hitting a ball and people laughing and people competing, right? Makes sense. But my contention is if we actually look under the covers a little bit, next slide, please, we see something more. What we see is that there really, this happiness, this joy, this connection is helping to address key community issues, and they're doing it in a really magical way. Next slide, please. So one thing they do is they serve and connect people of all ages and abilities. This is Ron Albrecht, who's 88 years old, who I saw this morning out there, and you see all the time. On the other end, you have pros, and then you have people with different kinds of physical challenges and limitations, and then you have everybody in between. Everybody is out there playing and playing together. Next slide, please. They serve local youth. Wide range of programs, 6 to 18. They do free clinics, meetup days when kids are out of school, don't have a place to go. They have competitions. They have volunteer opportunities for them. They work with Palo Alto middle and high schools. And they even provide volunteer coaches to help city programs. They actually give them the coaches for free to the city to say, here, help the youth with these programs. And this matters because, let's be honest, we know the kids are not okay. There's a lot of stress that they've endured. And we all know the statistics, anxiety rates, depression rates. This is a tremendous outlet for kids. It's a way for them to go interact with each other safely. It's a way for them to build up these skills. It's a way for them to be mentored. It has a lot of good properties. Next slide, please. It also brings together different cultures and languages. The woman here on the left and the right is Lonnie. Lonnie's part of the Tongan community. And if you've ever heard the combination of laughter from the Tongan community and the joy of pickleball melded together, it is an amazing force that happens out there. They'll hit you with the ball and then laugh, and then you'll laugh, and vice versa. It is just an amazing experience watching them. One day, she showed up with all this food and brought it out, and somebody asked her, oh, are you guys having a party, whatever? She's like, no. She's like, this community has made us feel so welcome here. We wanted to bring all this food out for everybody as a show of thanks. Next slide. It also increases socioeconomic interactions. Again, it's a super low barrier to entry. On the same people, you can have people, same court, people in low-income houses, the very wealthy, and everybody in between. And nobody asks, what do you do? Nobody asks that. They're like, hey, do you want to play on this court? And that's what all the discussion is about. The games are fast, that people are just playing and having fun and laughing. There's not all this typical, what do you do, blah, blah, blah. And this matters because when we spend time with different people, when we spend time with different communities, it increases our empathy. This is a known scientific fact, and that helps to unite the community. Next slide, please. And it builds social connections. Why this matters, US Surgeon General has come out and said, hey, we have a legitimate epidemic of loneliness. His quote, given the significant health consequences of loneliness and isolation, we must prioritize building social connection the same way we have prioritized other critical public health issues such as tobacco, obesity, and substance use disorder. To me, that's incredibly powerful. We need to tackle loneliness like tobacco, obesity, and substance abuse disorders. San Mateo County, some number of months ago, became the first county in the United States to formally declare loneliness a public health emergency. This group on the right is a subset of the Pickleball Club, they call themselves the Early Worms. They meet at 6 a.m. every day. This photo was taken 3 days ago. 6 a.m., a birthday party for somebody. 6 a.m., even when it's 36 degrees, they're out there playing every day. They didn't know one another at all a year ago. It's a great example of how it's brought these people together. Next slide, please. It infuses happiness. This matters because we all know there's a mental health epidemic. 1 in 5 US adults live with a mental illness. Many more are subclinical and yet suffering. And there's a treatment gap. We do not have enough providers, even in a place like Palo Alto, let alone other places. There is a fundamental problem here. The happiness one derives from pickleball is a great way to help with this issue. When I wrote this blog article, August of last year, I said something at the end about, at a point, we're going to have healthcare companies, we're going to have treatment providers writing prescriptions for pickleball because just by chance, it pulls together all these attributes that are like a therapist's dream. If a therapist said, let's take everything I would love you to do, here, it's rolled into this pickleball. Next slide, please. It provides engaging exercise. Of course, we know there's a high adult obesity rate. We know we have a problem with kid obesity as well. Less than 25% of US adults get enough physical activity, and that unfortunately goes down with age. 50% of people quit exercise within 6 months. Research studies have shown people stay with pickleball longer because of the social connections they form. Next slide, please. So my contention is, yes, what you see out there is people running around and hitting this ball and laughing and playing and all this stuff. But what's really happening is they're reducing loneliness. They're improving mental health, including youth mental health. They're uniting the community. They're getting seniors more active, and they're increasing overall physical activity. Next slide, please. So in summary, I think this is an amazing opportunity for a city club partnership because they have a magical recipe that's happening out there that I genuinely could believe could be applied in other programs, in other ways to help the community. And what I would say is when you think of pickleball, think beyond the sport. Think of it as a carrier of happiness to the community and the resulting effects that happen in the community when we boost happiness and joy. And when you think of that club, think of it as a tool that you can use to help different groups in the community. You have the ability to be able to partner with them, to be able to say, hey, we want to help this group. Could you design programs to help this group? They're already starting to bring in all these organizations. They bring the paddles, the balls, the coaches, the blah, blah, blah. Everything comes in. It's a great tool to be able to utilize to help other groups in the community. And honestly, I think per dollar, per square foot, it's hard for me to imagine there is another mechanism you have at your disposal that can bring as much happiness, can be as helpful to the community. Thank you.